But something else that we might hear announced tomorrow is a date for our much discussed new public holiday. It could be as soon as next month if they opt for Thanksgiving, which was suggested by TD Kieran Cannon. But another date that is gaining support is Saint Brigid's Day, February 1st. And in a moment we're going to be talking to Michael Nugent of Atheist Ireland, who strongly believes that any new public holiday should have no association at all with any religious feast day. First, though, we're joined by former Justice Minister Charlie Flanagan. And thank you, Charlie, for joining us this evening on the programme. I know you were writing about this issue in the Irish Times at the weekend. So what is your reason, what is your case for St Brigid's Day being the new bank holiday?
Sarah, hi, and thank you for having me on your show. I was provoked into this really by Jennifer O'Connell, who is an Irish Times writer, who was quite critical of some of the days that have been speculated upon. And having reflected on the matter, I come down firmly in favour of 1st of February, St Brigid's Day. I think Brigid is in our DNA, and there are a whole lot of reasons why, if we are having a new public holiday, well, then I think that we should go for Brigid's Day. I think it's an equality issue because St Patrick and St Brigid, are probably our two best known saints or Christian figures, yet we don't accord them equality. And I think by promoting Brigid to a full public holiday, well, then we put her on the same level as Patrick. But I think there are loads of other reasons. She's a nearly Christian woman of huge substance. We all remember going to school, we brought home the St. Brigid's Cross. She was very associated with agriculture, with the land, with the advent of spring and new hope. And she crosses the bridge. I'll be interested to hear, Michael, your next guest on this. She really crosses the bridge between the early Celtic mythology, the woman of Brigid, a pre-Christian figure, and the Christian Saint Brigid, about which we all know. And of course, Brigid is in history, a very common Irish girl's name. I worked in London as a student during the summer. I was called Pat, and English guys would say to me, "Are you going out with the bridies at the weekend?" The bridie's been a slang for the Irish girls. So really, in essence, Sarah, Brigid is in our DNA. She hasn't been honoured. I think she should. Okay.
Well, as you say, we're going to be speaking to Michael in just a second and hear his thoughts on it. But I mean, we can anticipate what Michael's going to say coming as chair of Atheist Ireland, that there shouldn't be any link to a religious figure or a religious event or a religious celebration, that is not inclusive for all those people who don't identify with any religion or indeed mythology or Christianity.
Yeah, and I think Brigid actually crosses that bridge very nicely. And I say to Michael, before you do, if we follow his logic, he'd abolish Christmas, he'd abolish Easter, it abolished St. Patrick's Day. I don't agree with that, and I don't believe the Irish people would buy that.
OK, well, that's a fair enough point. Michael, what do you say to that?
Well, I'm not suggesting abolishing any public holidays. And I've great respect for Charlie, and we worked very well with him during the blasphemy referendum. But to look at this issue in context, the purpose of the bank holiday is to mark the efforts of the frontline workers during the COVID pandemic. And the most obvious way to do that is just call it the frontline workers' public holiday, or the February bank holiday dedicated to frontline workers during COVID. There's absolutely no need, and indeed it's a distraction, to throw religion into the mix. When the healthcare workers and others were protecting us from COVID, nobody was thanking or applauding St. Brigid for protecting us, and we shouldn't demean the work of the frontline workers by having a saint onto the day that marks their contribution, and particularly not.
Well, I don't know. Could you say linking it to a saint is demeaning?
Well, what's demeaning is distracting from their work by saying that some sort of a saint should be credited with the holiday that is dedicated to the frontline workers, and particularly Saint Brigid, who is known for. Let's remember what she's known for. She wove a Christian cross out of rushes to convert a pagan chieftain into Christianity as he was dying. That's exactly the wrong message to convey in the multicultural Ireland of today. When RTE was launched with the Saint Brigid's cross as their logo, and John Charles McQuaid was celebrating the benediction of the Holy Sacrament live from the studio. It took them a quarter of a century to evolve away from that symbolism, and we shouldn't be moving back towards it. Now, there is a separate argument about
I tell you what,
being a woman.
Yeah, and we might get on to the... Okay, go on ahead.
Okay, I just think in terms of balancing, you don't balance a male saint with a female saint. You would balance a male saint with a female scientist if you did want to have a public holiday dedicated to a person, which we're not recommending. But if you were to do that, one of the options that you could look at is Dr. Dorothy Stopford-Price, who was a pioneer of the BCG vaccine that was central to the elimination of childhood tuberculosis in Ireland. She was also tended to injured combatant in the War of Independence and was a member of Cumann na mBan. If you do want to have an Irish woman represented, that would be a much more appropriate balance in the context of the COVID pandemic.
Charlie, I'll come back to you in it, and a couple of texts on this as well. Thus far, supportive of Michael's position on it, and I'm sure we'll get more texts on it, but Angie in Galway says the Catholic Church has done enough damage to women. That's a no to Saint Brigid. And someone in Blackrock has texted to say this is utter nonsense. Most of us barely believe in God, let alone Saint Brigid. Multicultural Ireland, how are you?
Yeah, I'm not really sure if the connection between Brigid and Catholicism is as rigid as your texters might suggest. I remember, for example, Ian Paisley chuckling at one stage from Northern Ireland that St. Patrick was one of his flock, that not only was St. Patrick a Presbyterian, but he was a Unionist. So merely what I say is that the figure of Brigid as a woman of substance, a woman of virtue, to my mind, has not been given the type of recognition that she should be. And of course I agree with Michael when he says that the object of the exercise is a COVID reflection. We look back at thousands of lives that have been lost where we didn't have a proper funeral, a proper wake. We didn't do things
what about Michael's
as we might
point
otherwise do in Ireland.
That if we want to link it to a woman, if you want to say that is something that you want to do, then how about a female scientist? And he's given a suggestion there of a female scientist that we could link it to.
Yeah. Well, he's also given the name of a politician, and I'm not sure if I'd go that far with him, but I see Brigid, the woman, as being synonymous with healing, with compassion, with generosity. I look at the Brigid wells all over the country. I look at the Brigid's cross, and I don't accept what Michael has said. I mean, my mother was from farming stock. I remember stories that she told about every spring leaving the St. Brigid's cross in the cattle shed, as a hope that the cattle would thrive during the summer and wouldn't die.
Yeah, and I suppose the point is, though, Charlie, that you have all those lovely memories with St. Brigid, and there will be other people that do also. But even just for those texts that I've read out there, there'll be plenty of people who will feel excluded, that they're not being seen or reflected if we have a new bank holiday that's linked to a saint. That for people who don't have any relationship at all with religion, don't see themselves in that vein.
It's linked with an ancient Ulster goddess, a woman of all Ireland fame, the ancient Celtic connection, which I think is important. And if people, are not knowledgeable about Brigid, well, then I would invite them. And of course we would be inclusive. For example, if you take some of the public holidays we have at the moment, we have Bealtaine for May, we have Samhain, which is Halloween or November, and we have Lunasa. The only Celtic festival that we haven't honoured is Imbolc, which is actually St. Brigid's Day as well. So it's not necessarily Catholic, it's not necessarily Christian, although I don't see that as being a bad thing, but it's also inclusive, and it's also, equal status, which I think is important in modern Ireland.
I'll come back to yourself, Michael, on it, and Charlie made the point at the beginning of this conversation, if you have a problem with this, do you not also have a problem with the Easter holidays, the Christmas holidays, Christmas Day itself, where does it stop?
No, because none of those were enacted by the Oireachtas. All of those public holidays predate the Oireachtas. This will be the first time that the Oireachtas has named a holiday after a saint, and it's exactly the wrong time to do it. Dorothy Stopford-Price wasn't a politician. She was a doctor. She tended to injured combatants both in the War of Independence, both and to the RIC. She was a doctor who was concerned with helping suffering people, and she was head of the national vaccination programme in Ireland, and was pioneer to ending tuberculosis, childhood tuberculosis in Ireland. So if you do want to balance a male saint, the most appropriate way to do that is with a woman scientist, and particularly one who was involved in the context of this with a vaccine program to eradicate TB. But I'm not even proposing that. I think what it should be is no distractions, and just call it the frontline workers' public holiday. There's no need to add in extra frills.
And lots of people
what is already
texting to 51551 about this, lots and lots of people texting about it. Not that many, Charlie, I have to say, not that it's necessarily reflective of what everybody in the country thinks, our text line, but not that many people supportive of linking it to any religious day. One person now does say we must keep our Indigenous beliefs and customs. It's the most precious aspect of this island. It's our true identity.
But
and
it's not a religious day.
Alone.
It's not a religious day.
Well, that person is actually supportive of you, actually, that one, saying that we should keep our beliefs and customs, but lots of other people saying...
But that actually predates Christianity. And I have to say that in terms of my reaction, I have to say I was very surprised at the reaction that I got from my letter to the paper on it. In fact, I got hundreds of people in agreement with me, but maybe they're not reflective of those who text RTE.
Well, maybe not. Pete in Cork is on your side. He says Brigid is the patron saint of Sweden. She was an ancient pagan goddess. The patron saint of nursing apparently is Saint Agatha of Sicily. That comes from Don. But I'm assuming, Michael, that wouldn't tick the box for you either, it being linked to religion. Another person says, no religion, please. The current medics don't need saints. They are the true martyrs in this new Ireland. And then another person, Charlie, I'll give this one to you. This person says, my husband is an ED doctor. He's rolling his eyes at the thought that a bank holiday on any date is a thank you to frontline workers. They'll simply have to work the day with the skeleton staff, and we've been discussing that in the programme already today. A commemorative coin or medal would be much more meaningful and cost effective, says that person. I mean, they're not looking for money, they're looking for a different type of recognition.
Yeah, I think a reasonable point is made about the consequences of a new public holiday in terms of work and economy. In fact, I heard Minister Damien English, Minister Martin Hayden, on this earlier in the year, that obviously careful consideration would have to be given, and wide-ranging consultation of a type that's envisaged by your texter on that one. But my point is, if there is going to be a new public holiday, well, then consideration should be given towards Brigid's Day for reasons that I put forward.
Okay.
And also, it's the 1st of February, it's the end of the dreary month of January. There isn't any holiday between Christmas and St. Patrick's Day. I think it would fit nicely in there. I would also...
And you have made that point.
In terms of the European Union, we are lower than average in terms of our public holiday.
Okay, and another person texting in your favour, although I do have to say most people aren't. One person says Brigid was the Celtic goddess of spring fertility and life, which I think is a great way to celebrate the frontline workers working towards life. Another person says science is not the new religion. I don't agree with involving any industry in a new bank holiday. Another says less religious symbols, please. Yes, for the lady scientist to be honoured. And the last, just for the moment, this person says call it Vicky Phelan holiday, the last Monday of January. Give her a day dedicated to her and all other survivors, which is certainly an interesting suggestion. And thank you very much for joining us on the programme this evening. That's former Justice Minister Charlie Flanagan, and also we were speaking previously to Michael Nugent of Atheist Ireland. As I said, lots more texts on this. We'll get to some of those later in the programme.